Start off the what? Okay, it's streaming? Good.
Yep.
All right. Alrighty, so again, everybody, if you could just go around, say who you are, say who your character is, and just introduce yourselves so we can get into our questions.
I'm Jordan O'Neill. I'm the writer, director, producer, and I play Bigby Wolf.
Hey, I'm Jordan Ogletree, and I play Beast.
My name is Anil Sankaramanchi, and I play.
I'm Kristen Malisewski. I play Beauty.
Hi, I'm Emma Van Lare. I play Snow White.
Get me?
Wait, what?
I can get that.
Never order? I'm
I'm
sorry.
Holly J. And did I screw it up? I'm
Just-
Holly J.
Start
I
over,
play
Holly.
Cindy. I play Cindy. I play Cinderella. It was not that hard. That's all I had to say.
My name's Doug Atkins, and I play March Hare.
Awesome.
I'm Cole Pfaffenberger, and I play Prince Lawrence.
I'm Kevin Lynch, and I play Dr. Swineheart.
Oh, cool.
I'm Noah Sprague, and I play Boy Blue.
Awesome, awesome. It's awesome. So glad you're all of you are here. And I guess we'll get to our first question. So I was wondering, and Jordan, you can probably answer this best. When you set out to create Fabletown, how simple or difficult did you believe it was going to be adapting the world of the the world of the comic books, considering that I think twice there have been like attempts to adapt it to the silver screen and to smaller screens like NBC and ABC, but they just totally fell through. So what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, when I went about writing it, I wasn't even thinking in that sort of space just yet about like how big of a deal an adaptation takes and how much manpower it takes to bring something like that to life. Because when you're writing something, it's literally just you and your computer screen. So everything seems possible when it's just you just going at it like, yeah, this is going to look great because it's all playing out in my head. But it was hugely difficult. This has been one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life because this is the first thing I've ever produced.
Oh, wow.
Ever, really. I mean, unless you count something in like high school where it's me holding the camera, and there's two people over there, and there's no mics, there's nothing professional about it. So it was immensely difficult. That's why it's taken so long. And, you know, I have to give credit to a few of these guys who have been with me since I wrote this thing in 2015, and we cast it later that year. Emma has always been our Snow. Kristen has always been Beauty. Holly has always been Cindy. And Justin White, who unfortunately isn't here with us right now, has always been the Mad Hatter, or who the other character he plays, which I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that yet because not everybody online's figured it out yet.
Right.
So no, Doug's telling me no. So,
Wow.
but I mean,
We
to
were
their
so
credit,
on to you.
yeah, to their credit, I mean, Jordan was there at the initial round of auditioning for Beast, and literally he was, it was like between him and one other guy, and it wasn't anything that he didn't do. It was just the other guy had something that like just kind of like registered in the room, and then that guy fell out. So it was the easiest choice to be like, hey, you still want that part? It's yours. So credit to these guys for sticking with it, but it was immensely difficult. And I know you're right. And oh my God, speaking of Justin, hello. Hey, can you get your husband?
Did you mean to call me?
Yeah, I did, because I was trying to get your husband onto this live panel that's on Twitch right now for Fabletown, if he's available.
Oh, he's sleeping. You better wake him up.
Yeah, could you wake him up? Thanks, Nicole. That is like the perfect metaphor, I think, for how this whole process has been. But you're right, it has been, they tried to adapt it for television, and then ABC decided, or Disney rather, decided to make Once Upon a Time. So it was, the best way I can put it is, it was a learning experience. And so I have to thank the entire team for sticking with it.
That's true. And then, so you were talking about some of the characters and stuff. Given that there's so many characters within the comic book universe, like, what was the process of choosing and picking the characters that like stood out the most to you for this series?
Well, once I decided that it was going to be about Bigby and Snow, and I decided that we were going to be this fan series that's a pseudo-sequel to the Wolf Among Us video game. And the whole idea behind it was just to write a story that I could cast people my age, actors around my age range, and within a story that could be taken seriously, because we're all basically in our 20s. None of us are going to be the lead on NCIS or something like that. But when you take it to the fairy tale world, age doesn't quite matter and looks don't quite matter.
Right.
So you're allowed to get away with more. But deciding on the characters, it was always really, okay, so here's the end goal. Here's the beats. Here's Snow and Bigby. Okay, who are they going to surround themselves and be allied with? And I was a big fan of the comics after the game, so I knew I could pull from both sources. And what's so strange is that in the comics, Boy Blue is such an integral part of what Snow does in her day-to-day life. So I knew that Boy Blue was in there. And I knew that Beauty and Beast, in the first draft, Beauty was not in it, actually. It was just Beast. And then I realized that, we needed some kind of, foil. How can we have one without the other? So Beauty was brought in, and it just kind of unfolded from there. I knew we wanted Mowgli to kind of be this foil to Bigby in the pilot, or to sort of be the
Sort
to
of
me,
like
Mowgli
the
is the
Sherlock.
Sorry?
Watson to his Sherlock.
That was inspired by Once Upon a Time and their storyline where they took Peter Pan and made him a villain. So that just set my brain off to think of, okay, who is a great villain that could go up against the big bad wolf? And so I don't know how I landed on it, but Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson showed up in my head. Dr. Swineheart came in because I knew that we were going to beat these characters up and someone's got to stitch them back together. Cindy, I think, was missing from the game and is one of the most badass characters in the comics. So I knew I wanted her. Jack and Rose Red were in the initial drafts, but they were cut because they slowed the story down.
I did have a question about that. What were some ideas you had, you would cut from the script? But honestly, sounds interesting. Do tell.
Yeah, so there was going to be an entire flashback in the Homelands. It was going to be intercut throughout the entire season, and it was going to culminate in the climax of episode 6. But that's really expensive to do, and we got to the point literally where we had a guy who was going to do the CGI wolf. It was going to be the story about how Snow and Bigby met. So we were going to go out to somewhere and find a tree, in a plane, and have Emma, shackled to this tree. And then we had guys in medieval get up in the distance. I mean, to the point where we actually went out and asked the Texas Renaissance Fair, hey, do you guys want to be a part of something? And it just never panned out. And so once I knew we had to cut some costs somewhere, I knew that was the first thing to go, because looking at it again, I cut it out of the script and I read it again and realized that the story wasn't going to be affected if we lost that. So It was hard to cut, but it was for the best. And Jack and Rose Red just slowed the plot down.
That makes sense. And then the last part of my question was, so there were fan favorites like Buffkin or Colin or Mr. Toad. Were there I'm imagining that given what you said about the whole Fable, the technical limitations with that are just,
Yeah, we just couldn't raise enough money to CGI a flying monkey from the Wizard of Oz around the table. I wish we could have. I really would have been great. I mean, I think a lot of these guys would have jumped at the opportunity to voice that character, but it just wasn't in the cards. See, Kristen raised her hand, yeah. There's tons of stuff. We had an endless budget that I could have done. We could have, I looked at one point of putting giant big green screens in a library to create the business office like it's portrayed in the video game, but it just wasn't in the cards. So it was all about imagination meeting reality.
That makes sense. This next one is for the cast. What were the auditions like for this, for the project? How were each of you approached? Anyone is free to answer.
Well, the thing that I remember most from this, I mean, I met Jordan because I was in a play with him. And so I think he reached out to his friends initially to audition, but he also posted it on this actor website. I think you posted it on Backstage. You might have done Actors Access. I can't remember.
Yeah, Backstage, yeah.
Backstage, okay. And so it was you would apply, you would, send in your materials for it. And at that time, no one knew that it was called this. It was called Bullfinch Street or something. And all the characters.
I remember that.
Yeah, and all the characters were not our names. So I think like Snow White was like Sarah White,
yeah.
and so it was all like hidden. And you got these the sides, like the parts of the script to audition with. So you just like sent in your audition. You think it's, I just thought it was just a run of the mill like drama kind of thing. And once we actually got the roles, then the mystery was revealed to us, and it was really cool that he had like hidden this big secret from us, and now we get to embark on this like thing together.
That's really cool, though. Any other stories similar or?
What I remember about the audition process, similar to Emma, she helped me film my audition. It was one of the first film auditions I had ever made, and we were all in the play together. I said, this is cool. I like this character named Betty. She seems nice. So I agree. We auditioned for human characters, just dealing with human drama, so that nothing cliche or fairy tale was part of the audition process. And then only when we were introduced to more and things were lifted up a little bit, you could see why that was held secret. There was nothing preconceived that we were bringing. We were just telling a real story, doing our best, and then we got to find the other layers afterward.
That's kind of cool, though. That's very interesting. I've heard similar stories, like hiding, like calling like the Joker like Jack White for like an audition. I heard someone tell a story about that. So, that's kind of cool, though. Let's see. I think the next question, Maggie, is in black, so you can ask that.
Okay, well, hello. So have any of you worked together before on previous projects? And as far as like local theater,
you answered that partially, but anyone else?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I didn't. I am a complete outsider to this whole group. I met everybody the first day on set except for Jordan. We actually met at an event that we were doing. We were awards presenters at a place, and he was like, "Hey, I'm working on this project. Do you wanna maybe read for it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." And from there, I was brought on, which is really great and cool. I'm from Houston, and so I'm in the theater scene here, and so basically everybody else I met when I came out to Austin to film. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll jump there. Oh, I was gonna say I'll jump in with Jordan. I knew Jordan and Holly from Lee Stringer's Film Acting School, so we actually took acting class together. So those are two people I knew going into this.
All right, that's cool.
I feel like all of us have like an origin story with Jordan.
Yes.
What happened?
Oh, I was saying, like, I feel like everybody's got an origin story with Jordan, and that's how we all kind of met. Because I feel like everyone met everybody else and only knew the one Jordan, right? My history with Jordan dates back quite a bit, but we did one commercial together. And the reason he, I think, even moderately remembers me was I was cracking jokes between the takes. And that's why I ended up getting the call. He was like, "Hey, so I remember you from that one time. Do you remember me?" I was like, yes, I very distinctly remember you. And he's like, "So I got this thing and I want you to read for it." And yeah.
Yeah, those were long days in that commercial. So Anil was able to make us laugh at about 5 a.m. when nobody wants to laugh at all. So like, that's just a testament to who he is as a guy.
True.
I did Three Musketeers. That was the first time I met Jordan. And it was funny because back when we were doing that play together, nobody in the show liked me. I was always exhausted. I had to be there an hour before. I played D'Artagnan, and I had to be there an hour before everybody, so I was already pooped by the time everybody showed up, so I was always in a bad mood. And then a couple months later, me and Jordan were both up for the same role. And then it seemed like he would always get a role in a play and would have to drop out because he would get into a film. And then they would just call me and be like, "Hey, do you want to take up this role that Jordan dropped out of?" So when Fabletown showed up, I called him up because I'm a huge fan, and I immediately wanted to be a part of it. And I was having all these technical difficulties trying to film and send him in my audition. And eventually he was like, you know what? You always take over my roles anyway. I know you can do it. You got the part.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any others? That way I'm not cutting everyone off.
I have been in shows with Jordan and with Cole and with Kristen around Houston and stuff. And so when Jordan reached out to me, I was like, oh, this is cool. I don't know what this really is, but I was like, sure, I'll audition, you know? And yeah, so that's how I kind of knew some people in the cast, and then the rest of the people I met either filming in Austin or Houston. So yeah.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
I always like working with people who are, I mean, these guys are all friends, but more to the point about filming is that I think it's better to work with people who are directable, people who you get along with versus talent any day. Because I've cast for other like short films I've done, and there's been some people who really nailed the part that came in and then had a bad attitude before we started the auditions. And I don't talk to those people, so
What you
that's a
trying to
testament to these
say,
guys.
Jordan?
I'm saying you guys are awesome is what I'm trying to say.
What you trying to say? We just had to smile and be nice, and we got the part.
Yeah, that's it. There's the cheat code for you.
So what are your thoughts on former mainstream television shows like Once Upon a Time and Grimm, with both taking specific aspects similar to Fables, and how do you think that kind of compares to what you guys do? Did my audio cut out?
No, we heard you.
Oh,
We're
okay.
just all trying to be polite. I can start us off with that one. I came to Once Upon a Time pretty late, but I was a pretty big fan just because I've always liked the idea of bringing different characters together. You know, whether that's like what the MCU's been doing for the last 10 years or what have you. I think that stuff's always really cool to see, especially when they pull it off. So I was a fan of Once Upon a Time for the time it was on TV. I mean, they were limited by funding as well. They were limited by being on a network television. So, I mean, that was always sort of in the back of my mind of like, what did they do right and what did they do, you know, not so well? And I think that's probably where that idea for that intercutting flashback came from. Since the creators of Once Upon a Time were guys that worked on Lost, which also had a similar format. So that's where that idea sprouted wings from. So I love what they did. I think Fables is a totally different beast, and I think it'd be very difficult and very expensive if you were to adapt the source material. But who knows?
I felt like Grimm took more of the detective approach that Fables has, whereas Once Upon a Time was rather the town itself, which is where I was getting at with they had took very similar aspects, whereas Fables, they're hidden from the human world, and in Grimm it's about the same thing, but there's more of that noir vibe to Grimm than anything.
Yeah, Once Upon a Time is, I feel like, much more of a palatable storybook kind of. Here's all these characters, how do they intermingle? Whereas Grimm like kind of set them against each other a little bit better.
Yeah.
And it was a little more primitive.
True.
Guess I should watch Grimm.
You should.
So I believe the next question is from Abby.
Oh, the show specific one. Oh, okay, here it is. You mentioned you had gone through early drafts of episodes 1 through 3 as of late. You had already answered what had gotten cut, but I'm curious, were there any cut ideas you wish could have made it in with no budget limitations or any of that?
Flying monkeys.
Yes.
Absolutely. There is one scene that's technically still in there. I believe it's episode 6, and it was I don't know why, but I really loved the scene, and we had to cut it down. But it's a scene between, without spoiling too much, it's a scene between Emma, Anil, and Noah, and it was basically two characters in one room. One character leaves, goes to the other room to talk to the other character. Then those two characters go into the room where that first character was. And that's just so many setups. When you have that stuff like that, you have to do a wide, you're a 2-shot, and then you've got to get singles of each of those actors talking, and then that actor leaving the room. Then you've got to do the same thing in the other room. So, I mean, all in all, we were shooting so fast, and we were so limited by how many days we had, really. I think we did the whole thing. When we picked up for episode 2 through episode 6, I think we did the whole thing in about 13 days total.
Wow.
So, I mean, I wish we could have done that, but I think we literally did that scene here, scene there, back in the other location. We cut those 3 scenes into one shot because I made the executive decision on set. I was like, put the camera over there. Emma, when I say action, you're going to do this. Anil, I'm going to clap my hands and you're going to walk in the room. And then here's the line for you. So there's things like that. I mean, throughout all the episodes, I think that, I mean, there are things that I'll notice, like, if only I'd had coverage of that, or I wish we could have pushed it on that character, or if we had just reworked this. But there's also some really good stuff. I remember in episode 2, I think when Beauty and Beast come in, we were about to shoot that scene, Kristen's the one that brought it up to me, and she said, hey, I don't know about this. I'm not sure it's flowing right. I said, okay, grab the other Jordan, let's go talk about it. And between the 3 of us, we basically reassembled that scene of when we learn what happened with Beast and Beauty's response to that, and all that conversation that happens before Emma comes back in the room. So there's, nuggets of gold like that came out of the process, just being collaborative. But I mean, there's also stuff that was cut that you just have to live with at a certain point.
Right. Next question for you, Megs.
Okay, so having access to a plethora of well-established and fleshed out source material, has that made it easier to portray your characters in terms of personality? And if so, what aspects of their personality did you feel that you kept in your portrayal? And then was there anything you added to it or any kind of twist that you put on it that you feel improved your performance? This is for anyone who wants to answer.
So for the character of Mowgli, he's always been quite curious intellectually. So he's always trying to understand as much as he can of all of his given situation. He takes in a lot of information from his surroundings. So whenever he walks into a new place, he's almost always scanning the room constantly just to see what elements are static, what elements are dynamic, and where the predictability is within that. And because of the nature of how he is in that regard, it was always really fun to see what you could do physically in your scenes with that character. So whenever you hand him something, he tries to process it in multiple ways. I think in the pilot, I stole a glass of whatever Bigby was drinking, and then first thing I did was sniff it instead of asking, what is it? So there are small little things that help feed the character. And as an actor, I love thriving on tiny idiosyncrasies like that. And thankfully, the source material gave all of that to me. So I had a lot of fun.
I think I'll throw in that most of us who play a character that has a story or a movie just about them, it's their origin story. It's when they're young or new or discovering something, but the Fables version of that character is so old. They're so old. So there's like the joke about Beauty and Beast is they're one of the only couples that have survived a very, 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 very long marriage and stuff like that. So it's not newlyweds anymore. It's not people learning to live together. It's we've been doing this forever and that gets on my nerves and so on. So it's really cool to think about who they will always be no matter what and what changes as you add time to the mix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would actually say just having so many different resources of your character actually kind of made it a little difficult for me. I think I definitely studied that, but I think like Kristen said, being that character in this specific situation, in this story for Fabletown, was what allowed us to be, I guess, or at least for me, be most effective because there's so many different dynamics to a lot of our stories, and we're portrayed differently depending on what you read or what the situation is. And so for me, I just had to really focus in on, who is Beast right now in this situation and not always go with the easy choice could have been. but just be true to what was happening in the scenes and in the story.
Yeah, and I, kind of piggybacking off of that, like, I think that having so much source material available, in addition to playing characters that are just like, widely known in general, I think it kind of gave a lot of freedom for us as actors to find our interpretation of these people and these characters. And I thought, I really appreciated that, because, looking through all the source material, you can pick from this, you can pick from that, and kind of remix. And so it's not exactly, it might not be exactly what someone who is like a diehard fan knows, but, it definitely has elements of it and calls to a lot of different things.
I, for one, loved playing Cindy. She.
Oh, thank God.
Does that say something about me? I don't know. But I just loved what a contrast she was to like a traditional Cinderella that people are familiar with. And so I just came from a fiercely independent, too independent for her own good, probably guarded heart, but you can tell it comes down at times. So I'm excited for what the rest of the season has. But no, I had a great time playing Cindy and tapping into that that other side, that aggressive kind of take no prisoners take.
For the record, that version of Cinderella is one of my favorite ones I have ever seen. So thank you for that.
Yes.
Very enjoyable.
Can I take this one, Maggie, so I can kind of word it in a way that's less...
Can we throw that question to Noah as well, just because I think Noah's the character, and maybe Kevin as well. These guys have like nothing to research unless they really wanted to like go into the video game or the comic books, because they're not quite in the pop culture zeitgeist as much as everybody else is.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go first.
I think I would say there's not much to research. I mean, there is, which I kind of dove into a little bit, but I think something that I enjoy doing is just like building a character, even if it's from scratch, just because like, and I think through the lines and like the subtext and everything, I could really like have a foundation of who he is. And even if he's not so complex as all of like Cindy and Snow and everyone, he still is kind of there for a reason. And he's just like, I don't know, he was really fun to play, and he has like a nice little story.
And this was Noah's first film role ever.
Oh, wow.
So there you go.
Well, he's killing it. I love his interpretation of Boy Blue. I think it's brilliant.
You guys are all killing it.
Yes, absolutely.
For me, Dr. Swineheart, the only research I did was kind of the comic, and my impression of him was Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. I don't know if you guys. And I'm not that good of an actor, guys. I can't pull that off. So I just had to kind of, I had to do whatever I can here. I just get the lines right, and that's it.
Probably the word he says. Kevin will show up with his own props. That's how prepared he is.
Yes.
He did. The night we filmed, he had his own whole setup. It was amazing.
Yeah. I didn't own any of. You're gonna see a doctor bag of his in episode 5 and a bunch of these instruments. I provided none of that. Nobody on the team provided that. That's all Kevin. Even like the bullet that he pulls out of my arm, he came with it. And with the tray, they made the whole thing sound. Nobody had to ADR or Foley that in. That's really Kevin dropping a silver bullet he brought into a silver tray.
That's why Jordan cast me, because I had the props. So
Yeah.
Literally at the audition, I thought it was an action military film because it's about a bullet. So I brought this printout of a hollow point bullet and all this stuff, and I think that's why he gave me the part. He's got props.
He's got props in more ways than one.
He's got props, yeah. I don't have a Fable book though.
I could have swore that Dr. Swineheart actually came out of a rhyme though, about three doctors, and they called him a Swineheart or something like that.
Yeah, you're correct.
I have a big book of old classic fairy tales that I was going to do a class for, and it just didn't happen. So I was looking through it, and I was like, oh, that's Dr. Swineheart's origin. That's kind of neat. So the next question I was going to ask was, unless did Cole or Doug explain theirs if they wanted to, or want to make sure we get to everybody?
Yeah, no. My character, I had never heard of Prince Lawrence other than in the game. So I had to actually look up his fairy tale. And I don't know if Jordan's ever going to put it out there, but him and I actually filmed a sort of drunk history type thing.
Oh, wow.
Where,
We're working on it.
Yeah, where he provided the alcohol, and I just told the fable of Prince Lawrence. It's actually a French fable, so not
Lare, yeah.
Not a lot of people really know about it. It's a very odd story, so it was a lot of fun trying to remember that while I was a little inebriated. So
yes,
and it was a fun time.
You know, everybody knows the Mad Hatter and March Hare, kind of the backstory involving like Alice in Wonderland. But Jordan has crafted this really interesting plot twist that I love that I can't talk about.
Yes, NDAs are wonderful.
It'll spoil the rest of the season, but it was really cool to kind of bring those elements of devotion that the March Hare has for the Mad Hatter, and kind of see how that twists and turns throughout the season with very, very minimal dialogue.
Yes.
You'll never see another actor do so much with one word.
One word.
Doug does.
One word.
How did you get off book for that, Doug? I don't know. I mean,
it was difficult. It was a lot of hours, painstaking.
I can see that. See that. Yeah.
So that's kind of it's exciting to see where it's going to go. And Jordan and I have already kind of discussed the future of the character, which is really exciting.
That's cool.
But lips are sealed. Bye.
Yes, lips are sealed.
I was like, NDA.
Yes. Jordan, you can probably answer this best. So I was thinking that you had said earlier that you were trying, that it was a sequel to Wolf Among Us 1. But I imagine that with the way that game is set up, was it a bit of a challenge to line up the story? Because depending on the choices, Prince Lawrence can actually die if you don't get to him, or like certain characters can just not be there. So what was your process when deciding how to line up the events of the game?
As in how to connect the elements?
Yeah.
That was tough. Well, I knew that no matter what you do in the game, that the crooked man who's the antagonist for that story he's dealt with and it's done.
Yeah.
But to me, and there's this weird cliffhanger that for some reason that cliffhanger at the very end of The Wolf Among Us where Bigby goes off and he's going after this other character because all of a sudden you're questioning the identity of that character who's kind of been sort of the catalyst throughout the story. For some reason, it wasn't as interesting to me as who is she versus how far is he going to chase that lead.
Right.
And so that's also, and at the time I was writing this, Telltale was still around. It was still, full steam ahead. And I just assumed there was going to be a Wolf Among Us season 2, which there is going to be now, but not in the same way. So I knew that whatever I did, I needed to make sure, because we're not, endorsed by them, by DC, right, by Vertigo, by WB, anybody, that we had to be connected, but also sort of be removed. And it wasn't even the hardest part. The hardest part wasn't connecting the elements. I just loved Lawrence, and I thought he was underutilized. And he's this guy who's carrying such deep sorrow that I wanted to see more of this guy. The hardest part really was once we set out to do this, that I had to make sure if we're going to be removed from The Wolf Among Us, the pilot has to be easy enough to follow. To the point, if you're a new fan, you can understand what's going on.
Right.
You don't have to go play the game. You don't have to go watch, let's play of the game. You don't have to read the comics. You can just jump in and follow our story. So that was the hardest part. But I mean, really, I just decided that it's just me and the computer at that point. So I just decided, I like Lawrence. He's back in the game. Let's do this. He did live. He didn't die, that didn't happen. You chose wrong, other thousands of game players. So that's how I just kind of made a choice to keep moving the story forward and who I wanted to explore and who I thought added to the overall story.
Right, that makes sense. I had where is that? Oh, yeah, this was a personal question just from me. Would you ever consider bringing Woody into the mix since he's Bigby's rival?
Oh, the Woodsman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say that maybe he was in. It was hard to decide who to bring in because I knew that we were going to have to cast every one of these characters. So, once you get, I think we were a cast of, 13 total if we include Hillary Taylor, who isn't here, who plays Briar Rose, and Justin White, who might be joining us very shortly, who's the Mad Hatter and Sherlock. But I knew that we were, unfortunately, the producer side of it is that the more cast members you have, the more costs are going to go up. Not just because you have to pay all the actors, which you do, but because that's more setups to show more characters. I mean, the scene that the first day of shooting was only that through a conversation between the three ladies in the pilot. That was day one. And that was just Cindy and Snow and Briar just talking. That took, I think, 9-10 hours. So, I love all those characters in The Wolf Among Us. I love all the characters at the dive bar. I love what they did with Gran and Holly and the Woodsman. I'd be open if we kept going, with this and we had more seasons down the line. I'd be open to bringing anybody in as long as they were serving the story.
Right. That makes sense. Maggie, you want to take this next one?
Sure. Did any of you have interest in the world of Fables before Fabletown was created, or after doing the show, did it prompt you in any way to seek out the material on your own?
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it before filming, and ever since we wrapped, I actually have Wolf Among Us downloaded on my Xbox now, and so I'm working my way through it very slowly, very methodically, trying to figure out every single decision I can make and figure out the story. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
I also had never heard of it, but after doing the material research for the show, I went back and started reading the comics because I was like, that's super interesting. And I do plan on playing the game, so I'm gonna download it as well at some point.
It's well worth it.
Yeah, I was actually a huge fan of the game. I've played all the Telltale series. So the moment that I saw Jordan post the Want ad for the auditions, I immediately sent him, I think, a message on both Facebook and I think I tried to text him too, just to try and get in there as quickly as possible before the roles were filled up, because I just was absolutely excited to get to be a part of an adaptation of one of my absolute favorite games.
And Cole told me, yeah, dude, I'll be like a freaking guard or a butler or something. Just get me in on this thing.
Yeah, I showed up and I was just like, whatever you need me to do, man, I want to be as involved as I possibly can.
I'll move a light. I'll make sandwiches. Those are the people you need.
Very true. Let's see.
I personally did not know anything about either of Fables or The Wolf Among Us. And so when I got the part and he kind of explained what it was based off of, I was like, oh, cool. And I didn't know what it was. But after I heard about it and everything, and we kind of started filming and I was kind of trying to research stuff, then I really got, I kind of read some of them and I looked more into it. And I was like, wow, this is more interesting than I thought. So, yeah.
That is one word for for that series of comics. Yes.
Abby, do you want to take the next one?
Yes. What is the next one? Oh,
Does anybody else want to answer that before we move on? I didn't know if Emma or the other ladies in the room.
Well, I was not familiar with the comics. And I don't even think I believed that these were fairy tale characters. I was like, what? because our auditions were under like, pseudonames. So yeah, I don't even remember my audition name. I don't know if it was, I don't know. Probably started with
I think yours was still Cindy. Honest to God.
Was it
I think that was
really?
I was like, we don't need to change that. That's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. So I was not familiar with the comics, and then I was like, oh wait, this is like the Fable characters, like we all know, and I was like, oh. So I've enjoyed learning since then. Yes.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
Well, I agree. Same thing. This introduced me to the series, and I did my research, and then I had fun looking up more of it. It was so much there. It's when you stumble on something that is huge and has a lot of fans and so many volumes or adaptations, you're like, oh, this must be good, and it makes you excited.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Emma.
I just said seconded, Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Let's see. Our question was, Maggie, exactly what was I looking at?
Huh?
Oh, wait, no, I see it. I'm sorry. I should have highlighted these. Wolf Among Us 2, as Jordan mentioned, was announced at the Game Awards in January. If you could choose any character from the Fables comics who was not part of or mentioned in Wolf Among Us Season 1, which character or characters would you want to appear in Season 2? Feel free to choose some literature if you'd like to.
Prince Charming, just so you could punch him in the face.
Yes.
Or glass him, as they say in the video game.
Yes. That'd be interesting.
I might be the only one who's played the game obsessively, except for Cole. So
that's true.
I like the idea you said about bringing Prince Charming in so you can punch him. Definitely another hateable character.
Yeah, for sure.
Crane.
Prince Charming in.
Crane. Oh.
Crane. That would be. That would definitely. You would really have to find the right person to just make such a hateable character on screen just really shine.
Well, you're gonna have to read the comics to find out what happens to that man.
Ooh.
And you got to read the comics to find out like who's fair game to put in the show. Let's put Robin Hood in there, Jordan. You can't. He's dead. Oh, great. Okay. Stuff like that. Or they're not in the public domain. You're talking about the game, anyway.
Feel free to add someone from literature. I mean, Fables is literally, it's not only is it fairy tale characters, it's everyone from Charles Dickens characters to, my goodness, the most obscure things you can think of.
I mean, if we're going that far, I would like to see like a somewhat more of like a posh, grown-up version of Huck Finn, because he was always the manipulative one, and so I feel like he would be a really interesting person to have in this zeitgeist.
Absolutely, I can agree with that one.
Now you're just giving me ideas.
Start writing them down.
Say again.
I said
am I writing it down? Yeah, dude. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, we're recording this, so this is all just gonna be like a big, like hour-long note session for me to add to what I already have on my phone or my brain and my computer or whatever.
Be on the YouTube channel, Jordan. You can go watch it later.
But building onto what Jordan says he already has, he's got other storylines and ideas and characters. I don't want to speak out of turn because he's mentioned ideas he's had to me. I don't know. Just stuff he wants to hold on to in case it happens. It's exciting. So
true.
I don't want to speak out of turn.
That's why she's the associate producer.
Yeah, the series,
Kristen is.
The series definitely has legs for future things, and Jordan has been very kind about sharing that with us and like the futures of our characters should there be a future, and that would be really cool to see.
Yeah, I agree with that. The show is so well written. When I watched it for the first time, I think about 2 years ago, I stumbled across it. I accidentally, when searching for, ironically researching the NBC ABC one, and it just impressed me. I feel like it, honestly, it does. It belongs on a network show. But like, that's what kind of makes it so special. It's just you're free to be. You have some limitations, but you are definitely free to take the show in a direction that you want to, rather than have a network kind of saying we have to do X, Y, and Z. So it's brilliant writing, and a brilliant cast as well.
Testament to them. I mean, without these guys, or without any of our post-production team, or our assistant director, our camera crew, our lighting, I mean, it would just be me, selfie style, playing everybody with wigs. I mean, that's all that would have happened. I mean, and I mean, maybe do you guys want to see that version? Because
I actually want that. I want that. If I could like somehow convince you to do it, I'll produce it. I'll buy you the wigs.
That'll be another.
He's in quarantine. He's fine. He can do it. He's got the time.
I am my own cameraman at this point. But I mean, the reason I'm so willing to share these ideas, I think, with these guys is because this has been a collaborative process. Because I mean, as I'm writing, I got to play everybody, but everybody else, what you're seeing in the final product is what they've taken with it. They put their own spin on it. And as much as thank you for the compliment about the writing, but a lot of some of the best lines in the show are lines that these guys have tweaked. That they're like, is it okay if I say that? I'm like, yeah, it's definitely okay. I'm not Shakespeare. Have at it. Unless there's like a plot element that I'm like, I think Justin, in the third episode, I mean, in case you haven't noticed, Justin talks a lot in this episode, or just in the show, and he had more lines, believe it or not. And then sometimes in the process of cutting his lines down, I'd give him, like, I cut a paragraph and add 2 later, just because I wanted him to say something. But I think he looked at me at one point, he was like, dude, I just can't get this line out. I can't get this little mini log. I'm like, okay, here's the 4 or 5 words you've got to get out. Make up the rest. And he did it. So thank you guys for being a part of it and just being so gung-ho to do stuff like this too.
Yeah, thank you so much for definitely joining us for this. This has been really, really cool. I had a question specifically for Emma, and maybe Jordan can jump into with this. Emma, I've seen different fan portrayals of Snow White, and one in particular I remember was like an audio form. And I didn't like her performance because I always read Snow as authoritative, commanding, like a leader with a strong head on her shoulders, and the no-nonsense to Bigby's like brooding loner persona. So my question is, in the process of finding your personal truth about the character over some figures, historical or fiction, I can't say fictional, fictional, that you look to to embody Snow, of course, outside of the character herself.
Oh, that's a great question. Well, so like I said, when I think a lot of what I built on initially came from the fact that when we were auditioning, we had the pseudonames, and just the breakdown of like the human regular Joe version of these characters. And in the breakdown, it talked about this Sarah White being like a town leader or a governor or something like that. So just from that word, that phrasing, I already knew that this was a person that was authoritative and, had a certain command to hold that kind of a position. So that already gives you a certain level of status and that kind of thing. I think around the time I was watching stuff like Scandal with Kerry Washington, and then we had the Obamas with Michelle over there. So, I guess in some way when I was thinking, oh, this is a governor woman, all right, who are people who are, embodying those kind of ideals. And so it was more like I took an archetype of like what I felt like I would be if I was like a politician or something like that. And, then have those images of like, what it would be, what is it like to be like a woman politician? And you're in these worlds with powerful men, and sometimes you're the only one. And what are the qualities of that kind of woman?
Huh.
So those are the kind of things that I was looking at when I was building this character. So yeah.
That's pretty awesome. And I really enjoy your performance. I think it's probably the best portrayal I have seen of Snow in any fan production.
Thank you. That's really
Of course, you're welcome. And then maybe Jordan, how do you feel like her portrayal and acting brings to light the writing of that character overall? You get anything?
Well, if I can just brag on Emma for a bit. The reason Emma has the part is not only her skill and her talent, but she knows how to audition well. And what I mean by that is that a lot of the lines, I think the script or the sides we used for the auditions were Bigby and Snow's conversation at the top of episode 2. And that whole, I can't remember my own words that I wrote now. The scene where she's talking about, like, do you hear that? Like the silence. I had to listen to that. There's exclamation points written in there. And a lot of the people who auditioned, they were good. A lot of people were good, but they were shouting it. Emma is the only one I can remember who got quieter and quieter as she got angrier and angrier, and it just shut me down. I mean, even when we were filming it, I was just like, oh my God, this is the scene that I'm going to lose every single time we do a take, because she shuts me down. And so it's that just goes back to what I said earlier about how these guys just took this, like, ball of clay I gave them, and they got to form it into what you guys get to see and enjoy in the final product. So I mean, Emma is Snow White. Emma is Snow White through and through. So I can't imagine anybody else taking on that role.
That's awesome. That is a
And I was sweating too. I remember I got to kind of look at, like, not like before it was edited, just kind of what we first filmed on that little screen that we had. And I don't know where my brain was, but I was like, wow, I'm really glowing. And then I was like, wait. And when we were not backstage, but when we were like offset or just like in our break room or whatever, there was like 3 fans, and we were just sitting there trying to cool off before we had to go shoot our next scene. It was crazy.
So I guess my next question would be a fun one. If you had the choice to switch characters with any cast member of your choice, or the choice to portray a different Fable, which would you switch or choose to portray?
I would love to play Cindy because she's a badass beach.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say I want to play Snow White. That's what I was gonna say.
I want to play Cindy. I want to play.
I want to be Snow White.
My role. This is my role.
Noah, there we go.
Yeah. There we go. New cast.
I mean, I would definitely love to take a crack at Bigby because I'm just a huge fan. I mean, I don't think I could nearly play it as well as Jordan, but that would definitely be the character. Plus, I can't grow a beard, so.
Well, if I step out, you're the one that has to step in. So
that's true.
Nobody else to jump in.
That's the rule that we've established now.
Yeah, that's what it goes on. I mean, to be fair, I did not cast myself, even though I am the creator of the show. I had another friend who was helping with the auditions at the time who was auditioning her own film. And she pulled a fast one on me because she knew I wanted to play Bigby, but I wasn't going to just give it to myself. I'm not going to be that guy. So she literally took my dialogue and put her character names above it, retyped it, and handed it to me and told me that I was auditioning for her short film or feature, whatever it was. And I was so brain dead from watching performances and reading with people that I had no clue that I was reading Bigby's lines.
Oh.
I completely forgotten about it. And then she goes, so you got it. I'm like, what? Freddie or whoever the character was that she wrote, and she's like, no, you're gonna be Bigby in your show. I'm like, what are you talking about? Can we go back to what we're doing here? She's like, we are talking about that. That is what we're doing here. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I can't do that. I can't do it. She goes, well, do you want it? And I'm like, yeah, I do. But to answer your question, I think when we were doing the auditions, another side story is that Justin, who plays the Mad Hatter, was definitely going to be – he was the best person who read for Bigby because we had multiple guys come in. And he was awesome. And as he was doing it, I was like, oh, yeah, this is the guy. Like, I'm just going to direct this thing. which is fine. This is going to be great. And then he read for the Mad Hatter, and that is what cinched it. So if I could take a shot at anybody to be the Mad Hatter, I'd love to play a bad guy.
Ooh.
I'd cut out more lines for him, but
Right.
I would probably take Kevin's character, Dr. Swineheart, just so I can tell my parents, hey, I eventually became a doctor. A little bit of escapism.
Yeah, I would probably be Mowgli. Yeah, it's cool. We swap too.
Everybody just gets to trade.
Jordan, I was curious. Did you get any questions from any of your fans that you maybe wanted to pull up?
Oh yeah, I have not checked the Twitter sphere yet. Let me see. I mean, I had plenty of friends send me a lot of questions that were just straight up joke questions that I'm not even going to repeat what they asked because it's so beyond anything that needs to be said. Someone did ask how long was the shoot. That was 13 days. We shot the pilot over the course of 2 weekends. In 2017, we shot the ladies drinking wine scene, plus the top of episode 2 with Cindy pulling out the rifle. We shot that day. The next day was everything you saw in The Office, because it was I think that we had to shoot it that day because it was all of Emma's stuff was in The Office, and she flew up to San Francisco, I think maybe a week or 2 later for school. So we had to get that done. So she filmed those 2 days, and then we took some time off. That was August of 2017. I stopped cutting my hair. I stopped shaving, and then we did day 3 was we started with Mowgli dropping Bigby off, and then we went to Beauty and Beast's apartment, which turned out to be a 1-shot scene with her answering the phone. Or no, 2 shots, because I wanted that overhead of, I don't know why I like to put people upside down and inverted on camera. I don't know why, but it's just something I like to see. So we did that. And then from there, we did the opening shot that evening of Beast in the alleyway, which turned into a wonder. And then the next day, day 4, we drove out to my buddy's ranch house in the middle of Weimar, Texas, in the middle of nowhere. And we did the Bigby Mowgli stuff. So that was 4 days plus 13 is, I guess it was a 17-day shoot. And we did shoot an 18th day last summer. That was day 18. It involved nobody here except for me directing. And all I'll say about that is that you need to watch through the credits of the last episode.
Okay.
So that's the only question I think that I could elaborate on that we got.
Okay. So it is almost 9 p.m. my time. And I would love to talk to all of you forever, but I know you all have lives and things you've got to get back to. So I'm going to end with this last question. We sort of answered it, but it was about what future plans do you have for the series once the world returns to a state of, well, I guess what we could call our pre-pandemic days of normalcy.
There's a lot of bonus content in the works I'm trying to get done. Like what Cole said, there's been we have some scripts floating out there to do what I think we're calling tipsy tales instead of drunk history. That would be fun to do. Of course, we would need to probably have access to each other so we can film those. There's going to be some commentary that I'm going to probably do the commentary for the first episode. Then I'll pull 1 or 2 of these guys in on subsequent episodes. 5 and 6 are in the works. They're deep in post-production. The reason they're taking so long is because they have the most visual effects shots. Right. And literally, if we were trying to mirror The Wolf Among Us when we set out to do this thing, and so I wrote 5 episodes. And then by the end of it, episode 5 was 40 pages long. So I said, okay, we're going to have an episode 5 and 6. So we got to think of another title to do. So they sort of are 1 episode split into 2. So I want all that done beforehand. And I'm hoping to have those out sometime in June, July at the latest.
Okay.
If we got a season 2, I know who I'd want to bring in. I know Kristen knows a lot about this as the associate producer because I bounce ideas off of her all the time. Just so I can ask, is this good or am I crazy? Tell me when to shut up, please. There's lots of directions this is going to go. There's characters in Wolf Among Us that are definitely in the works if we get a season 2 that you know and love or maybe hate. So watch through the credits of the finale and just stay tuned. And thank you guys for having us.
Of course, and I want to thank each and every one of you for coming on, for taking time out of your lives to do this. This has been so immensely grateful. And Jordan, I will see you tomorrow for the YouTube creators panel. I'll have Maggie send you an invite to that.
Sure.
So yeah, again, thank you again so much. I have no words. I literally didn't think
whose horrifying brainchild this thing was, who I then dragged her into this. We were just floored when you agreed to be a part of this with us. So we have just been so incredibly grateful. Thank you so much. And thank you. We wanted to give you a special thank you for all the help that you've given us and the advice for this as well. We really appreciate it.
No problem. I mean, these guys all said yes too, so
yes.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
This is really cool that you guys did this, by the way. You created this cool Comic-Con. That's really, really cool. So props to you for doing that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm definitely a cosplay guy myself, so it was pretty great to actually get to do something with it since I can't actually go out to the conventions.
Yeah.
Check out any of our other events. Feel free. We're definitely pumped to have you as part of whatever you want to do.
Yeah. So I guess, Maggie, was there any, do you guys have any social medias anyone can reach out to you at? So we could link or something somewhere.
Should we put it in the chat? Does that help or no?
You could send them to Maggie's, to the MockiCon Gmail, and then we can make a big, a list of all your social medias where people can find you and follow you.
Cool.
I think the show is at Fabletown Series across the board. So that's Twitter, Instagram, and I think Facebook as well. And if you go to fabletownseries.com, that'll take you to the pilot on YouTube.
Okay, that works. And yeah, so thank you so much. We will, we'll hopefully, can't wait to see episodes 5 and 6. Good luck with the rest of the show, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
See you, everybody.
Bye.